left of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who were not of Israel, from their descendants who were left after them in the land, whom the people of Israel had not destroyed. These Solomon drafted as forced labor, and so they are this today.
Thank you, Justin. All right, so it says, so for 20 years there was pretty major construction going on. And we know that there was the temple being constructed. The temple took 7 years, right? And what else was Solomon building? Major construction.
His palace.
His palace. His palace. And how long did it take to build his palace? Anybody look back at 1 Kings chapter 7?
13 years.
Yeah. In 1 Kings chapter 7 and verse 1 it says, it took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. So it's interesting, and we should go back. So 1 Kings 6, the last verse of 1 Kings chapter 6, in the 11th year of the month of Bul, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details according to its specifications. He had spent 7 years building it. Then it says, it took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. So why do you think there's such a dramatic difference between the house for God Almighty, the creator of the world, and the house for Solomon?
Had so many wives he had to build a bigger house.
I think that's feasible to me.
It wasn't a house; it was a complex of apartments, this hall and that hall.
Yeah. So we've talked about.
In his defense, you could say he put all of his effort into God's house first, leaving more time for him to get done.
Well, that's right.
Coming to his defense.
So something that I was thinking about was, who do you believe was do you think he had architects and folks to design his palace the way he wanted it? I mean, that's just like, look, if Julia and I ever build a house, I will have zero decisions to make. Who's built the house in here? I mean, oh yes. Did you make a lot of decisions, Philip?
Debbie said everything with the nails.
That was good. So Debbie decided on the nails.
Everything but the nails.
Oh, everything but So the thing is, there's a lot of decisions to go into that, and so he probably had a bunch of different architects saying, all right, we can build it like this, and we can do this terrace and this mezzanine and this, and your 400th wife can go over here, and your 600th wife can go over here, and your concubine, she's back here in the back. Who designed the temple of God? God did. And we talk about it so many cubits, and it's not that big, is it? So,
instructions.
huh?
They already had instructions.
Already had the instructions. So he put everything he had into it. And I mean, when you're done, you're done. I mean, you can't just keep building. I mean, you're done. So what he built was just a whole lot bigger. And I mean, I'm sure it was equally magnificent. Think about all the gold they put inside that temple. And so Solomon, he didn't skimp on anything. He makes me kind of think, I mean, if I had to think modern day, he'd be like the Trump. I mean, he's going to put gold on everything, right? I think probably he has a gold toilet. I don't know. All right. So I think it's just a big difference, and it's noticeable for us to see that there's this great gap of time. So I want us to look at question number 2 in the book. But before we read question 2, we really got to go back to 1 Kings. So a lot of our corresponding, we've got to have passages in Kings that correlate to the passage in Chronicles. So 1 Kings chapter 9, verses 10 through 14. 1 Kings 9, 10 through 14. Who'd like to read that?
At the end of 20 years in which Solomon had built the 2 houses, the house of the Lord and the king's house, and Hiram king of Tyre had supplied Solomon with cedar and cypress timber and gold, as much as he desired, King Solomon gave to Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. But when Hiram came from Tyre to see the cities that Solomon had given him, they did not please him. Therefore he said, What kind of cities are these that you have given me, my brother? So they are called the land of Kabul to this day. Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold.
So it was called the land of Kabul, which my notation at the bottom says Kabul means good for nothing. So Solomon gave Hiram, the king of Tyre, 20 cities that were really good for nothing. And then, so that brings us to question number 2, which is, why did Hiram restore 20 cities to Solomon?
Because he didn't like them.
Hiram said, "Man, this is junk.
He didn't find any value in them.
What are you giving to me, man? I gave you all this wood and everything that you needed, all this gold and stuff, and you give me 20 good for nothing cities." So he was kind of a, I guess we call that an Indian giver. Just gave it right back. So, but we see that Solomon, he takes an investment in these cities. So he rebuilds these cities along with others. And so, a lot of construction, a lot of changes are going on within Israel during this time. So what are some of the other cities that Solomon had rebuilt? That's question number 3.
Tadmor and Swin and Bethhoron, Lower and Upper.
So he built several. He didn't just build the cities. He did something else within those cities. What was he doing? It wasn't just, to build houses and things like that. What was he doing?
Storage, storage, chariots, and everything else.
Exactly. He's got a lot of stuff. He's got to have places for it to go, right? So he had to build storehouses and places for his horses, chariots, but also fortified. So as his territory is growing, he's got to make sure he's got more fighters there to protect that land and be ready for whatever may come. And so now let's read verses 7 through 10. We already read 7. Yeah, go ahead and read 7 again. 7 through 10 of 2 Chronicles chapter 8.
All the people who were left of the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who were not of Israel, from their descendants who were left after them in the land, who the people of Israel had not destroyed, so they are to this day. But the people of Israel Solomon made no slaves for his work. They were soldiers and his officers, the commanders of his chariots and his horsemen, and they were the chief officers of King Solomon, 250 who exercised authority over the people.
Thank you, John. All right, so we know that all this construction, everything that's being built, you got to have people. You can't put up a help wanted ad, and folks aren't going to beat your door down. I mean, if you're in construction, it's hard to find construction guys, right? Yeah. That's all I've been doing for the last 2 weeks is trying to hire construction workers. So it's an interesting process. I promise you that. And I bet it was there too. But the difference was they didn't have a choice, did they? They were conscripted. They were slaves. They were told, you're now going to build this, and they were forced into labor. And it was talking really about the foreigners that were in the land. And it was either the folks that were already in the land when the Israelites came in and took the land, or or they came in because of trade or whatever, but they were conscripted to become slaves. So what about the Israelites? What was their task? What were they conscripted to do?
They were like
leaders. Leaders, soldiers, officers, commanders.
Yeah, so they were really brought into the army to create the army, the fighting force. So they had regular fighters and they had commanders. So we need to flip back over into 1 Samuel chapter 8. So 1 Samuel chapter 8. verses 10 through 12. And so 1 Samuel 8, 10 through 12. And so this is when the people of Israel came to Samuel and said, give us a king. And then Samuel takes it to God. And then Samuel comes back to the people and says, Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, this is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your field and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your men servants and maid servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He'll take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out to the Lord for relief from the king. You'll cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day. So we start to see the prophecy that Samuel had given back at that time, that there's going to be a time when the king that you want, and the king is going to want your sons to be serving in his army. Now, I know we're in this passage in 2 Chronicles. It's specifically talking about the army and the men of war, but that's kind of the basis of that prophecy starting to come to fruition. Because as time goes on, whenever we get past Samuel into the other kings, that is when the people are oppressed, greatly oppressed, and things just continue to spiral out of control, and the people cry out. But what does God do? Nothing. So
it's basically 10% tax on all they had. In addition to making them servants, it's a 10% tax on all their animals and all their assets.
Yeah. I think they're paying a 10% tax. A lot better than 33%.
I think it might have.
Yeah, but exactly. But it was burdensome on the people, and I just think it's interesting. It's nice to go back and read passages from other writers that coincide directly with what we're talking about here.
The term as it is to this day, that's still to this day too.
Do what?
In verse 8, at the end it says, as it is to this day. Are those folks over there still?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
When it's talking about the people, the Hittites, the Amorites.
Right. It's an interesting verse. The way it's
Yeah, it is.
that way, but
That'd be at the time of the writing.
Right.
yeah.
Well, if you read it from the King James Version, it says, but of their children who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel consumed not, them did Solomon make to pay tribute until this day. So it's kind of like up until the time of the writing. Yeah, it's not that they're still servants or anything. All right, so let's also read while we're right there in 2 Chronicles. Hey, let's read verse 11. Who'd like to read that?
Chapter 8.
Mm-hmm.
Then Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the house which he had built for her. For he said, my wife shall not dwell in the house of David, king of Israel, because the places are holy where the ark of the Lord has entered.
So, question: why does he feel like his wife can't be there?
She's not holy.
She's not holy. So this might be the first departure we read about of Solomon. Departure from what is holy, which is God, the service to God. he's been so focused on making sure that the sacrifices are done, that the priests are in their roles, they're doing their work, but now we see something. It's caused by a woman, Pharaoh's daughter, who is considered not holy.
That might be a nice way of putting it. I think ultimately she's serving false gods. I mean, she is worshiping, praising multiple deities that are not God. And clearly he doesn't want that to spread. He doesn't want that to be an issue or a thorn. And so I think he's realized that would not be wise to keep her close in that regard. So.
And it says he has her for her house. So it's almost like he's built her a totally separate little shack out back.
So that actually gets to the very last question in this. It's one of the things that's not mentioned in there. It doesn't go into the detail in this particular. It is in Kings, I think, where it actually talks about building her palace.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. So let's think in terms of what should have been. So Solomon, the wisest man ever, what would have been the wise thing for Solomon to do with his unholy wife?
Not to have married her.
Well, that's a ding ding correct answer. That's the first answer that is absolutely right.
It was more of a political marriage than anything.
Yeah. I'm sure. Because there were great trading partners with Egypt, and it was interesting. You think about when we go back and we look at was it Deuteronomy? I can't think. John, you talked about it in your class the other day, and I had it written down. I think it was Deuteronomy, where and it was the command not to do business with Egypt, basically. And then yet, what does he do? He's doing business with Egypt, and because they got great stallions in Egypt, and they also have great daughters. Not great daughters. They ship over to Israel. So the thing is, you cannot have holy and unholiness together. You cannot. It's like having something. It's like having a clear glass of water and red fruit punch. You put a little bit of red fruit punch in your clear water, and now you got sort of reddish water. But it's not clear anymore. It's not holy. It's not pure. And so, by Solomon allowing unholiness, he began to corrupt himself.
And he apparently allowed all these foreign wives to continue worshiping their gods and even bringing their gods into Israel. So that, Kings tells the story that eventually Solomon fell away because of that.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be talking about that coming on Sunday. So Sunday's going to be the talk. We're going to be discussing about Solomon. Solomon because he has a lot of ups, and really in Chronicles, it's really ups. They don't talk. The writer doesn't talk much about the downs of Solomon, but Kings does, and so and it's important for us to get the full picture of who Solomon was, good and bad. He was still a good king on the overall, but he made his mistakes. Just like David did, just like every king did. They all made mistakes because they're just men. All right, so let's go ahead and read verses 12 through 16, chapter 8.
On the altar of the Lord that he had built in front of the portico, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings to the Lord, according to the daily requirement for offerings commanded by Moses for the Sabbath, the new moon, and the 3 annual festivals, the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacles. In keeping with the ordinance of his father David, he appointed the divisions of the priests for their duties, and the Levites to lead the praise and to assist the priests according to each day's requirement. He also appointed the gatekeepers by divisions for the various gates, because this was what David, the man of God, had ordered. They did not deviate from the king's commands to the priests or to the Levites in any matter, including that of the treasuries. All Solomon's work was carried out from the day the foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid until its completion. So the temple of the Lord was finished.
All right. And I think it's just fascinating to say that Solomon did not deviate from anything God commanded him to do. It was all written down and given to David. David gave it to Solomon, and Solomon executed it. Without question. It took him a long time, but it was exactly the way God told him to have it done. So, question number 6 in the book says, how does the chronicler describe Solomon's worship?
Accurate. Correct. He did everything he was asked to do while he was working.
There was an indication earlier that when David wanted to bring the ark up, that the ark was still separated from the tabernacle because the tabernacle had not been used very much during the reign of Saul. So these feasts that were listed here and the offerings on the Sabbaths and the new moons were not being made during the reign of Saul. David reinstituted some of those, and then Solomon in the temple had all of the utensils back together, so he was following all the sacrifices that were required to be made.
I think a good word is no deviation. Deviate. It's just a little change. Just a little change. It's no big deal. Nobody will notice it. It says he did not deviate. So I think that's important. I only wish that he had expressed that same wisdom towards his life. And think about Solomon. It's always he's a great example for all of us. We can do things right, or we can make changes, do something that's a little bit different. And I think we can give a lot of this blame to his wives. But regardless, the blame is Solomon's. I mean, it doesn't matter who he has around him. He chose to have those folks around him that are going to have this influence over him. And so the same thing applies to us today. If we have people that are influencing us in certain ways, we don't need to be around them. We have to do whatever we can to be away from them and surround ourselves with the right influences. Those influences are going to lead us to God. All right, so that was all I wanted to get through in chapter 8, but I do want to move into chapter 9, and when we get into talking about Solomon's wisdom when it comes to the world or worldview. And so somebody watch a minute. It's a kind of a longer reading on this one. I'd like somebody to read chapter 9, verses 1 through 9.
Now when the Queen of Sheba heard the fame of Solomon, she came to Jerusalem to test Solomon with difficult questions. She had a large retinue with camels carrying spices and large amounts of gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was on her heart. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was hidden from Solomon which he did not explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Solomon, the house which he had built, the food at his table, the seating of his servants, the attendance of his ministers and their attire, his cupbearers and their attire, and his stairway by which he went up to the house of the Lord, she was breathless. Then she said to the king, "It was a true report which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. Nevertheless, I did not believe their reports until I came and my eyes had seen it. And behold, the half of the greatness of your wisdom was not told me. You surpass the report that I heard. How blessed are your men! How blessed are these your servants who stand before you continually and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God who delighted in you, setting you on his throne as king for the Lord your God, because your God loved Israel, establishing them forever. Therefore he made you king over them, to do righteousness and justice." Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and a very great amount of spice, precious stone. There had never been spice like that which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, you need to record the entire Bible.
That comes from teaching classes.
I know.
She is really laying it on the thick.
She is, though. I'm sorry. I was just captivated.
She's due for the kill.
Oh yeah, I mean she is.
Laying down.
She's laying it down. But she's impressed. She is impressed by what she sees. All around her, everything from the servants to the land to his wisdom, she's impressed. And so, flattery does get you somewhere, and usually it does. But let's check first. So question number 10: Why did she come to Solomon to begin with? What was she seeking?
She was trying to see if the rumors were correct about his wisdom, his riches, just the whole, what everybody had been telling about him, how great he was.
So he was becoming infamous around the world. Folks were.
It says to test him with hard questions.
Yeah.
So she wanted to see if it was true.
Yeah. Are you really as good as they say?
She didn't even ask any questions, did she?
Well,
She saw it with her own eyes.
yeah. I don't know. We don't know how long she was there. She may have been there for a month, but we don't know. But so she is impressed. So question number 9: What gifts did she bring to Solomon?
Spices and gold.
Spices and gold.
Precious stone.
So yeah, and so my version says 120 talents of gold, and so 120 talents of gold is approximately 4.5 tons.
That's a lot.
Tons. How many camels do you think she had to load to carry that much gold? So, I'm in the asphalt business now, so I think in tons now, because everything when I design a proposal, it's about tonnage. And so I'm trying to think, okay, I need this many tons, and a truck will carry 22 tons of asphalt. So I got to base how many trucks do I need based on how many total tons. So 4 tons is roughly about 1/5 or 1/6. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of gold. Crazy. And so,
Close today at
huh?
4,600, I think. That time, brown.
Yeah. So it's a lot. And so it wasn't just the gold; it was the precious stones. It doesn't say what the precious stones were. You can, imagine multiple things. But the better question is, so she's impressed. Oh, she's so impressed with Solomon and his wisdom and his greatness. Oh, and you're so great. And she lays it on thick, just like Philip was saying. She flatters him. So what does the Queen of Sheba get out of this visit? So she received all that she asked for and desired, and he gave her more than what she brought to him. So that's a pretty good deal. I'm bringing all my camels, I'm bringing you all this stuff, and all this is for you, and here, you can't go home empty-handed. I'm going to give you more than what you brought. So flattery will get you a lot of things, and it may have actually. I've always wondered if maybe he was trying to get her to be,
One of the things.
his wife 1001. I mean, I don't know, but it could have. Who knows? They may have. I mean, he could have gotten one of her daughters or nieces or whatever. But it's just interesting that she came with all that and she left with more. So do you think that Solomon was just a very generous man?
So, strategy. I mean, you can pay stuff off in cities. You got some money. You know what I'm saying? But I was just curious about that. My brain works in numbers. In verse 13, it says the weight of the gold that King of Solomon yearly was 666 talents of gold. A talent is roughly 75 pounds. I did the math. It's 3.6 trillion yearly.
3.6 trillion?
When you do 366 talents times 55 pounds.
That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good.
16 ounces per pound. You know, times 4,600 at close today. Yeah, 3.6. So yes, he was. We got Elon Musk worth 400 billion, and we think that's a lot. This man truly was the richest man before or after ever.
It ever will be.
You can buy things with cities. You got money.
Well, see, I'm going to explain the difference between. I think there's a great difference between the wealth today and wealth then.
Well, those are today's dollars.
Oh, that's right. Well, I mean, obviously yes, but see, also you got to think about this. So, all of the billionaires of today, they don't have physical, tangible assets. They have a bank account, and they have stock, bonds, mutual funds, all these things that they're. So we talk about Solomon, and we talk about 4.5 tons of gold. Well, we talk about and the thing about it is so the 666 talents of gold a year, that equates to 25 tons. That is more than a dump truck load. More than a dump truck load. So annually.
Well, the Queen of Sheba was somebody too, because we still have an expression we use today that who does that person think they are? The Queen of Sheba, someone who is affluent.
All that.
Yeah.
She's willing to give that much. She's got a lot. Not as much as Solomon.
That's a good point.
They threw that up to have a lot of slaves as well.
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to look at. I mean, he's not just being. I mean, he's being giving, but what's he going to get out of it? I guess that's my thing. All right, so we're going to continue reading. Let's pick up reading. We kind of got into that. Let's start reading at verse 13, and then I don't know if we have time to read all that. Read 13 through 28.
Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, besides that which the explorers and merchants brought. And all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold. 600 shekels of beaten gold went into each shield. And he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 300 shekels of gold went into each shield. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king also made a great ivory throne and overlaid it with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps and a footstool of gold, which were attached to the throne, and on each side of the seat were armrests, and 2 lions standing beside the armrests, while 12 lions stood there, one on each end of the step on the 6th step. Nothing like it was ever made for any kingdom. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. Silver was not considered as anything in the days of Solomon, for the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Hiram. Every 3 years the ships of Tarshish used to come, bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Thus King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Every one of them brought his present, articles of silver and of gold, garments, myrrh, spices, horses, and mules, as much year by year. And Solomon had 4,000 stalls of horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he stationed in the chariot cities and with the kings of Jerusalem. And he ruled over the kings of the Euphrates to the land of the Philistines and to the border of Egypt. And the king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stone. And he made cedar as plentiful as the sycamore of the Shephelah. And the horses were imported for Solomon from Egypt and from all lands.
That's a pretty good description of some wealth right there. I mean, there's no expense that is spared. You know, we talked about the annualness. I mean, that was what was brought in. That was, and it says that did not include the revenues brought by the merchants and the traders, and also the kings of Arabia and the governors brought gold, and so it was even more than the 25 tons, the 666 talents. He talked about 200 large shields of hammered gold. That was 7.5 pounds of gold per shield. The smaller shields, there were 300 of them, and that was 3.7 pounds of gold in each. You know, it talked about his ivory throne. So ivory, first of all, how do we get ivory?
Elephant tusks.
From elephant tusks. So you got to kill a lot of elephants in Africa and have them brought to construct this throne, overlaid with gold, with a lion beside each side, the footstool made of gold, 6 steps with 2 lions on each step. So I got to ask an interesting question. Do you think that these were lion sculptures?
Gold. Pure gold.
Or do you think that they may have been real lions?
Gold. Maybe real golden lions.
They're golden lions. Golden lions, yeah. So it's such vast wealth, amazing to think about. And then at the end of the chapter, though, it says that he reigned over Israel for 40 years. So, and obviously, it doesn't matter how rich we are. In the end, what comes to all of us? Death. Death comes to all of us. And so he was succeeded by his son. And what was his name? Rehoboam. All right. So look, we're going to end there. And so on Sunday, we are going to talk about Solomon's life in terms of his ups and also his downs. So I hope y'all will be here for Sunday. Y'all have a great night.
No, chili.
Mike, you were in good voice tonight, brother.
Yeah, that's true. I did.